All right. So today in review, we're going to just talk about adding and subtracting decimals. We're going to talk about perimeter. And we're going to talk about rounding rules. So take out your notes. Rounding, and then perimeter. So those are the three review items that we're going to cover. And most of you will remember all this, but it's just good. Oh, we're going to talk about place value too. It's just good to have a refresher course. So let's start with place value. So go ahead and write that number down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.789. Give you guys time to do that. So this is place value. All right, what do we know about all of the numbers to the left of a decimal point? What do you know about them? Clyde, remember anything?
Say that again.
The numbers that are to the left of a decimal point.
There are dollar signs
Yeah,
on here, cents.
good. So
Yeah.
everything to the left of the decimal point are what we call whole numbers.
Okay, whole number, yeah.
Whole numbers, yep.
That's probably
And
what
that
we're
has to
looking
do with money, right? Dollar bills, $1 bill, $2 bill, $3, $4, $20, okay? So think of it as dollar bills. Everything to the right of the decimal point is the change in our pocket. So this is the decimals or fractions. They're the same thing, and we're going to learn about that, but it's the change in our pocket. Okay, so everything to the left, whole numbers. Everything to the right, not whole numbers. They're partials, change, fractions, decimals. And then every number has its place value. So this first column is the ones column. So if I had 6.0, I would have $6 and no cents. So I'd have 6 $1 bills. Okay, the next column is the tens. If I had $56, I would have 5 $10 bills and 6 $1 bills. The next column is so it goes ones, tens, hundreds. Good. Then what? What comes after hundreds?
Thousands.
Thousands. Fantastic. Thousands, Thousands. Then what?
No.
Close. First it goes thousands, then 10,000s. Then it goes 100,000s. And then if we add another number in front of that, that would be the millions. And then it would go 10 millions, 100 millions, billions, 10 billions, 100 billions, trillions. Okay? So ones, tens, hundreds, thousands, 10,000s, 100,000s, millions, 10 millions, 100 millions. Good. Okay, when we go to the right of the decimal point, our first column is the tenths, and you'll know them by their THS. So these all end in DS, hundreds, thousands, 10,000s. These all end in THS, tenths. And there is no once column. It starts with the tenths column. The next one then is the hundredths. Yes, Mike?
Say that again. The one with the 100 or 100. That's,
This is hundredths, THS.
so over there.
This one is D, 100, starts with a D.
So it's an L.
It's an S, DS, yep. This one is a THS. And the third spot is going to be the thousandths. THS. And then it would continue 10 thousandths, 100 thousandths. But I want us to recognize that we have the THS in the decimal spots. So if I have the number 5,643 and 32 cents, let's just put it in dollar terms. What place value is the 4?
Hundreds.
Close. You're only 2 spots away from the decimal. So it's the tens. Good. What would be the place value of this 2?
Hundreds.
Hundredths. Good. Good. So this is the tens and this is the hundredths. Does anyone know how you would say this number? Like you would write it out? So the first one is 5,000. Then what do we have? 643. We wouldn't say, that's how we would say it, right? 5,030 cents, but how we say it in math speech is 32 hundredths. And the kicker here is the and means the decimal point. So the word and, so when we write 5,643 and, that means decimal point. 32 hundredths. So that's how you would write this out. And long gone are the days of writing checks where you would write 5 and 32 and you put like a 100 underneath it. Now we just like Venmo people or PayPal or
I still see checks.
You still see
Okay,
checks?
I'm a cashier.
yeah, I still write them, and people write that, right? 32 hundredths or 10 over 100. Yeah. Yeah, and the and means that decimal point. There's a whole generation though that won't know checks. Okay, so let's break this down. We caught up with our note taking a little bit longer. Okay, I want to catch up. So if I had, don't say this out loud, but just on your piece of paper. If I say, and I'm gonna write this all out, 7/10, how would you write that as a number? So if I said 7/10, just, yeah, how would you write that as a number? And I'm gonna give you guys some markers too, because these tables are write-on tables. So you can write on them and not have to make your notes look icky. So it's kind of fun to use these write-on tables. But how would you write 7/10? Just try it out and tell me what you think you would do. 7/10. Yeah, what do you think? Give you a couple seconds. Do it on the table, Clyde. Find your paper. There you go. Right, 7/10 on the table. What would it be?
Sounds almost like 7.0.
Okay, so Clyde said 7.0. What did you say, Samantha?
Oh, okay.
7.10. Okay, what did you say, Dominique?
0.7.
0.7. Okay, what did you say, Ashley?
Actually, I thought it was fractions.
Okay, so how'd you write it?
So I put 7/10.
Okay, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. Okay, so this has 7.0, which means $7.00. So close, but no.
Yeah.
This
Right.
is $7.10.
Right.
Okay, so this is 7/10 because it is the 7
Huh?
in the 10th spot. And as a fraction, you're 100% correct. 7/10 means 7/10. But how we write it as a decimal is like this, 0.7.
I know you can do that, but I didn't know you can do that.
7/10, 0.7. So that is a 7, the number 7, in the 10th spot. And we know the 10th spot is the first number to the right of the decimals. So how would I write 9/10 as a decimal? So now that you know what a fraction looks like, how would you write it as a decimal? 9/10. 0.9. Fantastic. Good. What about 1900s? What about 1900s? 1900s.
$1,900.
Yep, 1900s. So what would that look like to you? So Shaylin, what do you got?
1900.
Okay, so if I went 19.00, you're a cashier, what would that mean to you?
$19.
$19. Okay, so how can we make that to 1900ths? Notice that the hundredths is 2 spots, and it's to the right of a decimal. So let's just take that decimal point and move it over. So it's going to be,
Do you put a 0 in front of it?
you can, but you don't have to. It's going to be 0.19. Because this is the number 19 in the hundredth spot. So 1900ths is 0.19. What if I had, this is going to be a tricky one, what if I had 700ths? So this, Dominique, is where that 0 comes in. Because I know that I'm going to have the number 7, and it's going to be in the hundredth spot. And we know that the decimal in 2 places is the hundredth spot. So that 7 has to end in the hundredth spot. We have to put a placeholder, 0.07. Good. Yeah. So here are some examples that you have in your notes that will help you on your homework. 7/10, 9/10, 1900ths, 700ths. For fun, what would 7,000ths look like? Maybe like, got this now. So 7,000ths would look like 0.007 because it's the number 7 in the 1,000th spot and it's 3 decimal points. Fantastic. Okay, so these numbers are also called digits. So if you see in your homework what digit is the number 4 in the place value or what place value is the digit 6, you know that they mean the number. And you can go back to your notes and look that here's the 1/10, 100,000s, here's the 9/10, 17/10, that kind of thing. Is everyone's notes caught up so that I can erase this part? Dominique, you feeling good?
Yeah.
Okay, got some examples? Shaylin, you feeling okay?
Yep.
All right, fantastic. I'm gonna erase this because we're gonna talk about rounding now. And the reason that we start with place value is because rounding depends on the place value they tell you to round to. Now, if I have the number 73, is that closer to 70 or closer to 80?
80.
Think 73 is closer to 80 than it is to 70? What do you think, Shaylin?
70.
70? 70? You change your mind? Like, wait, stop, no! It's only 3 numbers away from 70. It's 7 numbers away from 80. So what rounding does is rounding allows us to work with zeros that make our life really easy. And we can make sort of an estimate that's pretty close. So if I'm adding up, like I'm going to the store and I'm adding up a bunch of stuff and butter is $2.49, 42 cents. And I'm like, I'm gonna round that to 7. And lettuce is $4.99. I'm gonna run that to 5, right? So it's easy for me to do my math in my head. So rounding means the number that's sort of close to it or closest to it. And when you have rounding, they'll tell you, the homework will tell you what place to round to. So let's say this one says round to the tens column. Okay, so we have 732 and it says round to the tens. So here are your rounding rules. So the first thing you do is you identify the place value. And I have a process, I kind of have OCD for some things, so I do some things religiously all the time. And so rounding is one of those things. So I identify the place value with an arrow. So what digit is in the tens spot?
The 3.
The 3. Fantastic. So I'm going to identify it with an arrow. That's my step 1. Okay, step 2 is circle the number immediately to the right. So I'm going to circle the 2 because this number tells me what to do. Okay, so the first step is I identify with an arrow. Second step is I make a 0 because this tells me that once I do whatever I'm going to do, this is going to become a 0. Okay, so the rules are below 5, keep it. 5 or higher, go up 1 number. So this right here is the number, so it's under step 2, right? This is the number that tells me what to do with this. If it's below 5, which it is, I keep this same number. What's confusing you? You're like, I have this. Is it my handwriting?
The first word for number 2.
This is fantastic handwriting. It's supposed to say circle. But
Okay.
I put the dot over the C instead of over the I. And then I like combine my L and E. I'm always super jealous of those people who have the perfect handwriting. But my brain just does not do it. I don't want to take the time to make every letter perfect. So I'm like, I'm going to forget stuff. So thank you for asking. Okay, so we circle the number immediately to the right. And then if it's below 5, we keep the arrow number. If it's 5 or higher, we bump the arrow number up 1. So if this was 739, and I'm still rounding to the tens, because this is higher than 5, what do I do with this 3?
I round it.
Make it a 4.
Make it a 4. Good. So this would be 740. Good. Let you guys catch up with your notes, and then we're going to practice some. Okay, so here's our new number, 1,456. And I want you to round to the hundreds. Okay? So what digit is in the hundreds?
5.
Close, that's the tens. So go one more.
The 4.
The 4. So that's my number. Now I circle the number immediately to the right. What is that 5 gonna do to that 4?
Turn it into 5.
Turn into 5. Good. So this becomes a 5, and then the rest of the numbers become 0. And that's why I circle that number, because that reminds me that this number and the rest are going to be zeros. So this becomes 1,500. What happens if I'm rounding to the thousands? So I take this same number now, so that's the tenths, and I round to the thousands. What does this number become?
The 7.
What do you think? So what's your final answer going to be? If I have 1,456, so Dominic told me that the 1 was the thousands. I look at the 4, so what's my final answer gonna be?
Nothing, it's the same thing.
1,400.
Well, remember, so this becomes a 0, and everything behind it becomes a 0, so my final answer is going to be 1,000. Good.
Huh? Why?
Because this is the number, I said round to the thousands, so this is the number in the place.
Yeah, I'm looking at comma at decimal, and that's the whole number, and that's 1, 10, hundreds, and there is no thousand.
Ones, so there's no decimal number in this number, this is a comma. So it's 1, tens, hundreds, thousands. My decimal point is here.
No, you're doing it backwards, okay.
Yeah, you're doing it backwards, because I have a comma.
Okay.
So it starts from the right, go from right to left.
Okay.
Good, okay, so 1,004. So what if I have $3.24 and I want you to round to the tenths column?
You can't, same thing, because you don't have the 5.
Tenths. What number is my tenths column?
2.
10 is 2.
Okay, so then what number do I look at?
4.
It stays the same
And
because it's not a
It
5.
keeps this number the same. This number will become 0. You're only keeping the number that's under the arrow the same. The rest of the numbers become 0. And that's the piece you're missing, Clyde. This number stays the same, the rest becomes 0. So this would round to $3.20.
Okay.
Okay, good.
I'm gonna do it then.
Yep. So identify with the arrow, circle the number to the right. Below 5, keep it. 5 or higher, go up 1. Good. Can I erase this now? Okay. And then our last thing that we're learning today is a little geometry. No applause needed. No screams of excitement. Got it. So perimeter. Perimeter is the distance around the outside of an object. So circle this in your notes so we can come back to it. The distance around the outside of an object. So that could be a square, it could be a rectangle, it could be a diamond, it could be some weird shape. Okay? Perimeter is the distance around the outside of an object. And we use this in our real world life all the time. This trim board, or baseboard that's along the bottom of this room, that's perimeter.
Perimeter is distance around, but do we have to do the inside too?
No, that's area, we'll talk about that tomorrow.
Oh.
Remember, little bits. So this silver lining, that's perimeter. It goes around the outside of this board. If I'm cutting trim boards for my windows or my doors, that's perimeter. If I'm building a fence, that's perimeter. Okay, so we use those all. So to do perimeter, we're gonna add up all the sides. That's it. So to do perimeter, we're gonna add up all the sides of an object. So if this square has, let's say, 3 inches, what do we remember about a square?
All sides are the same.
All sides are the same. So the final perimeter of this square, then Dominique, would be what?
12.
12 inches. Fantastic. What do we know about a rectangle?
2 sides.
2 sides are to be equal. So the top is 7, that means the bottom is?
7.
Yep. If one side is 4, that means the other side is
4.
4. Good. So the perimeter for this shape would be 8 plus 14.
22.
I can't do it that fast. I have to count. 40, 50, 60, 70,
That's what I just did.
I know my multiplication tables so well, but you asked me to add and I'm like 7, 8, 9, I don't know what it is, so don't judge. All right, and in a diamond, so a diamond is basically a square that's been tilted up on its edge, so all sides are also equal. So if this diamond is 5 centimeters, that means the perimeter would be
20.
5, 10, 15, 20. Good. And then these, when they have like, they're a combination of a square and a rectangle or something. These are called complex shapes. And we'll deal with these more later. They're actually, will give you most of the information. All you have to do is take the 2 longest sides for perimeter and double it. So if this is a 7 and this is a 5, we could take that number 12 and double it. And we'll go more into that later. So 12 plus 12 is 24, so perimeter equals 24. Okay, so perimeter, distance around the outside of an object. We're just gonna add up all the sides. Feeling good about that? I feel good, na 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 na. Knew that I would.
Oh, that's a tricky one.
So what, tricky one? Yeah, but you only have to take the 2 longest sides and double them because, and let me see if I can show you this. I'll show you why.
Me it'll be 35, but I know it's more.
Perfect. Okay. So the reason I only have to take the 2 longest sides is because if I had, let's try and do this. Let's say this is 24 inches long. Okay, this whole piece, this whole string. And so this is a square. And we're gonna say it's 6 sides on each, 6, 6, 6, and 6, 24. Okay. Let's make it a rectangle. It could be whatever, it's gonna be equal 24. Now, if I change it so that it has like an L shape to it, really struggling here. If I change it so it looks like an L, does that change how much rope I've used? No, it's still the same amount of rope. So even though my shape has changed, I still have 24 inches here, whether it's a square or an L. Ooh, there's an L. Okay. So with this, as long as I have the 2 longest sides, I know that this side here
2.
is going to equal 5, right? The whole thing has to equal 5. And I know that this whole length has to equal 7. So that's why the perimeter is still the same on those. Now the area will be different, and we'll talk about those tomorrow when we do area. But okay, are we good with perimeter? Can I erase this? We got one more concept to talk about, and now let's do your homework. So one more concept, and that is adding and subtracting decimals. So I want to make sure that we remember to line up the decimal numbers, the decimal points, sorry. Okay, so the rule there is line up decimal points. So if I have 243 plus 0.7, I need to make sure that I line up the decimal points, and then I'm just going to fill in zeros if I want to keep it all the same amount of spaces and digits, because the zeros won't change anything for me. It just helps me like put them all together. But if I only have 0.7, I have to line up my decimal points, and then I can add straight down. 3 plus 0 is 3, 7 plus 4. 7 plus 4?
11.
11. Good, carry the 1. And my decimal point comes straight down. So key here is lining up decimal points, and then you can fill the rest in with zeros. If I have 3275 minus, let's do 0.06. Okay, I line up my decimal points. I fill in my open spaces with some zeros. I cannot take 6 away from 5, so I have to borrow from the 7, which makes that 15. So then I've got a 9, 6, I bring my decimal point straight down, 2 and 3. So the key here is just line up your decimal points, fill in the blanks with zeros, and then add or subtract. Okay. And this is all on the homework page. So on today's lesson under Tuesday, I have put all of this on here for you. It's in there. So we talked about place value for reminder. We also talked about rounding, give some examples. I talked about perimeter, I talked about adding decimals. So this shows you how that they added some zeros in there and then came out with the final answer. I'm gonna turn this off.